Clip Studio Paint is actually better than Photoshop, if not any other software out there, when it comes to making sequential arts or comics, especially comics with that Japanese style aesthetic that we all know and love as manga. In this video, I'm going to be going through some of the basics of Clip Studio Paint in order to make an actual manga page from start to finish. So you're going to watch me and some of my colleagues at Saturday AM put together a page from start to finish just with the basics to show you how powerful this software is. And guys, I'm not just saying that. As you guys know, I'm a creator myself, creator of Apple Black, and I myself use Clip Studio Paint a lot to produce my work. Just so you guys know, I'll leave a link in the description so you guys can download a trial version of Clip Studio Paint. You guys can go try it and explore it, or follow this video if you want. Big shout out to Celsius, the creators of Clip Studio Paint. They've actually partnered with us at Saturday AM to bring this video to you, and it's really cool, and we feel really honored that we got the opportunity to do this because they've not worked with any group like this at all outside Japan. And as a result, at the end of this video, I will share a special offer announcement from Clip Studio Paint. Clip Studio Paint is more streamlined and structured in such a way that it is made for making illustrations, comics, and even animations. Here we're just going to touch the basics, and even just the basics will show you how good this software is, especially for people who want to do maybe just manga or comics or things of that nature. Regardless of whether you're a vet or a newbie to art softwares, Clip Studio Paint is very easy to learn, and there are a lot of available resources to help you do so. One of the perks of Clip Studio Paint and digital art in general versus traditional art is that you get to save some money, right? Traditional art, you end up buying the same tools over and over again because they finish. If you're making Japanese comics and you want to have that screen tone effect, if you're making it traditionally, screen tones cost a lot of money. You have to buy that over and over again, along with all the other tools, pencils, paper, as the list goes on. But once you have digital software, you have it. It's done. Clip Studio Paint itself is being used by a lot of professionals in the industry, so it's not any small fry type of software. You can do a lot. Sometimes I actually work traditionally and digitally at the same time, where I may sketch and ink a page and then scan it into the computer and then edit and tone and add text and things like that. You can do that with Clip Studio Paint as well. So there are an infinite amount of ways you can work with this software. It's up to you. It's more about the user versus the tool. Now, this is a powerful tool that raises your level of a professional look, but at the same time, as a user, if you don't know how to use the tool, none of that's gonna matter. Luckily, in this video, I'm gonna use just the basics of it all to show you the capabilities and what you'll be able to produce. Let's get into it. We're going to be writing this, storyboarding it, sketching it, inking it, putting screen tones, text, editing, all in this video. Here we have the app. You can go up there. You can create a new file either by clicking that image or going on file and hitting new. You have other options if you want just an illustration, comics, and it kind of comes with some preset settings for you to take advantage of, but we just want comics. There are more options. You can actually create presets for sizes. If you want to make your own page sizes, you kind of have a lot of freedom there to do what you want to do, but there are other options there to add more pages to it, add a cover page to it, and Clip Studio Paint organizes nicely to make that happen. Then when you have it open, on the left you have options of the tools that you can use in here. I recommend you explore them. A shortcut for P is to either send you to the pencils or to the pens. If you hit brush, it will give you some brush options. You can click and explore them, and right underneath that you have the settings where you can mess with the brush size or things of that nature. If you keep hitting B, it'll give you more options with that brush aesthetic, and it'll give you some toning options, and there's a lot of stuff to explore. But don't worry, once we start putting the pages together, everything will make sense. It has other options like anti-aliasing that kind of keeps the brush stroke crisp, or you want it a little feathered and just a little blurry, so you can click on those and explore which one suits you best. So here, if you look at the edges of the paper, you see all these lines and guidelines that help you realize where to draw and where not to. So the part that I've selected with the marquee tool, you hit an M and it gives you all these shapes that you can use to select parts on the canvas. The parts that I've selected yellow are the parts that will usually be cut off when you are going to print or things like that, and sometimes you can do that yourself. We work for a company and you have to send your pages to the printers. You kind of have to give them those yellow parts and they cut it off themselves, but you see the guidelines will be there, and you know, it can get a little complicated. You might have to export with those guidelines, and it helps the printers decide what to do. And then the word bubbles are going to be within the box at the center of the page. Then on the right side is where you have the layer dialog box, and you have all the layers there. Once you create a new file, it already comes with one layer already there that's completely white, and that's just basically the white background of everything you be drawing on. And hopefully you have some understanding of layers, because it's pretty much the same regardless of the art software everywhere. As long as you have a decent idea of how layers work, you should be fine. You can duplicate layers, you can delete layers, you can move layers around, put them in folders. The list goes on. Quick masks, just like Photoshop, if you have some experience with that. And then some. You see top right, you have navigation, you have the color wheel at the opposite end, at the bottom left. And then starting off with the page, one of the first things you do is you already kind of have an idea, or maybe even written narration and dialogue ready to go. And then based off of that, you then create what is called a storyboard or Nemu or a thumbnail that usually will be edited. Maybe you go through your editor and you guys talk about the best ways to convey your message, whatever the story is, the storytelling techniques you use, and how the page is going to be paced and all of that. But in this case, we're doing something a little bit of a freestyle, so we're just going to go with it and start with a storyboard, come up with some ideas and have fun. So here I'm sketching the page. I know that I want to do just 3 panels, so I need to figure out what would be the most interesting thing to do. I'm trying to make sure that I include some of our most popular characters in Saturday AM from all the different series, obviously including Sano from my series Apple Black, as well as Cass from Clock Striker, Dante from Soul Beat, and Ciao from Bully Eater. I'm trying to have something cool where we're all kind of in this really cool battle scene, splashy type page. The panel expands beyond the edges, and I want to have all the characters doing some kind of fun actions. Going to have speed lines and sound effects and all this crazy stuff. They're all battling in the air, but in the second panel, my character lands, and there's some kind of evil, villainous guy on a throne. See, you can use the marquee tool over here. You can select parts of the that you want, and you can delete. It'll give you certain options. If you just hit delete, it'll just go away. But again, all the Control Z tools, all that kind of stuff works here as well. There are even options where you can immediately delete everything except your selection if you use the marquee tool. It'll give you all those options at the bottom for you to explore. So you see I have all these characters. My character in the middle is kind of stretching his arm. That's kind of like what I have in mind, and it's going to be speed lines and all of that. Again, the second panel, you have this figure sitting on some kind of throne, villainous looking dude, maybe some stairs leading up to his throne, giving him that sense of, oh, he's looking down on you. And then my character saying something cool after he lands. And that just ends this page, and I think that's enough for what we're trying to achieve here. Usually what you go after these thumbnails is you create a new layer right above it called the sketch layer, and then you sketch everything in a little more detail so that you can be more precise when you create a newer layer for inking. And then after inking, you go into newer layers for toning, newer layers for adding in text, dialogue, and all of that. But Clip Studio Paint, like I said, it has everything kind of streamlined and gives you more professional looking options if you want to explore the options that the software provides. So let's try those. So here we want to use Clip Studio Paint's panel cutter tool or frame tool, and then create a sketch layer in each frame. So what you do is you hit the shortcut U, and then you can go click on frame at the top. Right there, it'll be on direct by default, but you go hit on frame, and then you click the rectangle frame. There are more options for speed lines and all that kind of stuff. It can get more complicated. We're not going to use those, but I'll show you another way to do speed lines. You also want to make sure you go to view, and you want to make sure snap to ruler and snap to special ruler are ticked off. Then when you hit on the rectangle frame, you just go and then you can hit on that square right in the middle of the page, and it will just snap to it. You can play with the settings and play with the thickness of the lines. Now look what happens when you create that box. It almost creates this new box that is snapped to the center of the page. Automatically it comes with that layer, almost like a layer folder with these 2 layers within it called frame 1. And you can play with it from there. And the way it works is when you draw within a layer inside this folder, it's going to stay within the frame, keeping your edges really nice and clean. You don't have to worry about going across the panel line because it's all centered inside that panel. You can't draw anything outside the panel. It's almost like creating a nice little mask for you. If you click and drag the layer that's within the frame and you put it above, you will see the lines would go across, but whatever layer you put within that frame folder, everything will be fine because it will stay inside the frame. Next, you go back to hitting the U shortcut on the keyboard, and it takes you back to the tool. You go to divide frame folder, and then you can cut the panel. And what this does is then it creates a new frame folder in the layer section that you can play with. And whatever you draw, it still works the same. It'll stay within the frame as long as you're within that layer folder. Now you see the gutter was too close, where when you cut it, there isn't that much space between panels. You can play with that. It's called the vertical gutter and the horizontal gutter. You can play around with the settings to decide how you want the gutters to be, but this whole panel cutter tool just makes the process of creating panels or frames in comics much easier and much more organized. So now I'm just gonna cut the panel exactly how it is from the storyboard initially. After that, you can actually reshape and resize each panel to fit what you have on your storyboard. I go to the frame I want, I create a new layer called sketch, and I just start sketching. Use the pencil tool, that's a shortcut P, and I use the mechanical pencil in there. Again, playing with the brush size that I feel is the best one. And the reason why I have that space on the left is because I'm imagining this page is going to be on the right side of a book. So I'm keeping a space in between the panels and the gutter of the book so that no important art or text can ever be lost. Then from here on out, I just keep sketching and adding more detail, using reference if you need to use reference, and you just want to make everything as best as you can, detailed enough to where when you start inking, you're not doing too much thinking and you're doing more of a trace game. I'm figuring everything out where the sound effects may be. My character is a teleporter, so he's teleporting in the air and then he's landing from this part that he's teleported, where all the hits are going to be, where I'm going to put speed lines. Here in the sketching phase is where you figure everything out. And I created a separate layer to put the speed lines. Another cool thing about this software is that under layers at the top, if you go to ruler frame and then create perspective ruler, it has a perspective ruler / perspective guide that keeps things in play if you want to use for speed lines or use for backgrounds, and it gives you the options of 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, or 3-point perspective, which come in really handy. We'll use this again when doing speed lines in this same video, so stay tuned for that. Here in my style, I'm using a mixture of freehand sketch and the perspective ruler. It's kind of up to you what you want to do, but remember, as long as the perspective ruler layer is on and visible, and you will see this eye icon on the left side of the layer box. You want to make sure you can tick on that to make it visible or invisible, and as long as it's visible, that means it's on, and whatever you draw will just kind of match that perspective vanishing point. Now I'm done going frame by frame, panel by panel, creating sketch layers in each of them to have a more defined sketch on what's going on within the frames. Then I do the same thing for the inking layer. So I hit the shortcut P, and then I hit it till I have the pen, and I choose the pen I want. It's real nice there. There are really cool pens here that you have the option of using, calligraphy, effect line, or texture pen, which are really nice and give that traditional G Pen inking vibe. But there is literally one called the real G Pen, so you might as well just use that, because the G Pen in traditional work and used by a lot of professionals, especially in Japan, is what's used for shonen manga and manga of that nature, and used in general for inking on deleter paper, comic book paper, the list goes on. So we're just going to use the digital version here, literally called the real G Pen. I mess with the size that I want. You can mess with the opacity and all the other stuff, but I rarely mess with those. The default settings are usually good, or a good place to start, unless you know exactly what you want. Then you proceed to ink as you would traditionally, and sometimes you go over the strokes again and again until you get the right line variation you want. You have line variation stuff going through your mind. Things that are closer to the camera will be inked thicker versus things further away in the illustration, and so that keeps the illustration, the panel, a little dynamic. And so you will see that where we have a Ciao further at the distance, and he'll be inked with thinner lines. And the cool thing here is there is pressure, so you don't always need to go back to the brush size. Sometimes you have pen pressure where if you really press the pen down, it will produce thicker lines. So it really tries to mimic how the real G Pen in real life would work. Now, when you're done inking, I go to that sketch layer, I make it invisible, I make the storyboard layer invisible, and then here you can hit a W shortcut and it'll take you to lasso tools, and it allows you to select parts easier. I hit on the W, I go to refer other layers to select, I stay on the inking layer, and then I just click on the parts that I want to fill in black. You can click on multiple parts, and then here it gives you options at the bottom whether you want to expand the selection areas. I want to expand it by just one, and then I hit fill. Boom! Then still on that same inking layer, I go to the hair, and sometimes you can play with it just to have some highlights on the hair, and I go to the color wheel at the bottom left, and I hit white, or just drag to the color I want, and then I go on the hair, and I just do all these strokes to kind of mimic hair strands, and light shining on the hair, and I just have a little white there, and I mix it up going from black to white to get it exactly how I'd like. And then I do the same thing to the rest of the panel. And there are multiple ways to put in sound effects as well. You can draw it normally like I did the boof sound effects of the teleportation, or you can go to the left and use the text tool or shortcut T, type in the word you want to use. Here I'm using wham, and you can change the font size, all of that, and you can even click and drag to the shape you want. Then once you right click on that layer, you hit rasterize. But bottom line is you rasterize this text layer. That way you can edit it, and then you can use the marquee tool, shortcut M, and maybe even use the polyline marquee, and that way you can just hit all the points you want to hit, the parts of the layer you want to manipulate. Hit Command T, and that way you can move it around, reshape it, resize it, and I'm going to do it to the WH part and do it to the AM part. Now while still on that layer, I can delete parts of it and make it have a little more depth where it's behind Isao's kick, whereas the AM seems like it's in front of, and just keeps everything a little more dynamic. Another option, or use the brush tool on the left. You can hit B and it'll show you various options. It can show you like airbrushes or effects, and the list goes on, but you keep hitting B until it shows you like watercolor, India ink, and all of that, and then you find the brush you want to use and you can just straight up draw the sound effect that you want to draw. Now I'm done with the regular inking of the panel. I want to add some speed lines. When I want to do speed lines, especially if I want to create them manually, I go to the top, go to layer, ruler frame, create perspective ruler, because I want to use the perspective to draw these lines to show motion and just overall action of what's going on. For regular speed lines, I always pick 1 point perspective, and 1 point perspective is very easy to know what the vanishing point is, and I just drag that far away from the canvas, like really far away, far enough to where any lines that I draw that snap look like they're parallel to each other, but just enough to where they're not 100% parallel, and I like it that way. And here I have the option to make the speed lines on a separate layer, that way I can erase it with ease on the parts that I don't want it to show. You have several options and ways to create almost anything in this software. Even if you're creating the same thing, there are several methods to do it. And then, usually for this page, I would want to add some screen tones. You just select the area you want, and then there's an icon underneath your selection area where you can just enter your screen tones. There'll be some tone settings for you to explore to give you a whole lot of options of what you want to do. But then once you enter and you fill it in, it would then automatically create a tone layer. As long as you stay on that layer, whatever you draw on, regardless of what tool you use, whether it's a brush or a pen or whatever, as long as you're on that layer, you can create more tones just by drawing on any other part of the illustration that you want. This right here is really easy, guys, especially knowing that if you're drawing manga traditionally and you're using screen tones traditionally, they become really expensive because you have to ship them from wherever you're getting them from. And here with Clip Studio Paint, it's all in there. Clip Studio Paint also has a laundry list of material presets for screen tones for whatever that you can just drag and drop to wherever you've selected on your canvas, and they're really easy to apply. Just like a lot of things with this software, there are a million ways to apply screen tones, but this is one of the simplest ways, just to select the area you want and just to fill in with one of the options underneath the new tone option. And if you want to add materials or already made presets that come with Clip Studio Paint, and it's really easy once you go to the material window and you get to the option you want, you can easily just click and drag into a selection on your canvas. Again, all of this just makes that manga making experience much easier in Clip Studio Paint. And then for lettering, we can go check on my buddy Jay Odin, find out what his thoughts are on how to create text bubbles and lettering overall.
Yo, my name is Jay Odin, and I'm the creator of Hammer. In this picture, there are 4 main characters from 4 different series. Stud from Hammer, Issa from Better Off Ignorant, Charles from Spoon, and Nilai with his ghost Daedalus Bond from Massively Multiplayer World of Ghosts. When I draw my series Hammer, I almost always use Clip Studio. There is another reason why I like using Clip Studio to draw comics digitally, and that's the speech bubble feature. Now, I'm going to go through this with you guys so that way you can see what I'm doing. First, you're going to want to go to the balloon icon, which is right under the A, which is the text icon. You're going to, after that, want to choose what shape of a balloon speech bubble that you want. I picked the ellipses balloon because it just felt right for me. But yeah, you're going to want to choose that. So I have balloon right here, right next to Stud's face. After that, I went back and I got a tail, a balloon tail. The balloon tail you can make thinner or thicker depending on, you know, whatever the width of tail scale is. I fixated on 35.2 because I feel like that's thick enough. It's not too skinny, but still looks, you know, pretty decent. And I pointed it to Stud's face. So after that, I, you know, zoomed in so that way I can, you know, add the words to it. And you're gonna want to add the words using the text icon, the big A, like I mentioned earlier. I don't want it to be too big, so I made the text a little bit smaller. I made it 10.2. And then after that, you're gonna want to text whatever you want him to say. After that, I'm choosing the font for the text, and I go on Anime Ace. Anime Ace is usually what I use for all of my comics. And then I made it centered, so that way it doesn't look too off or anything. And there you go, voila. That's how I made a speech bubble for this page.
Similar to Jay, the text tool has all these options for you to use, and you can explore all the options there. You can mess with all the settings. You can even customize your own balloon and create it manually with a new layer by yourself. You can save the illustration, obviously, and then there are options for exporting. You can export the page in such a way you have the page be cut off at the parts that would traditionally be cut off by printers. You can save and export without cutting it. It all depends on you and what format you want is. I can save it and it will save the whole canvas as is, but I can also export it and I'll do the cutoffs and it'll show you how the page would look for a final view. And boom, you're done. That's your manga page. And trust me, there's a lot we didn't touch that is also really cool and useful as well. So I hope you guys check out the software because I use it all the time. It's been a lifesaver. And now for that special offer announcement from Clip Studio Paint. The first 100 customers to use this coupon code will be able to purchase the standard version of Clip Studio Paint Pro, or the full feature version of Clip Studio Paint EX, for 20% off. This offer will be valid until January 31st of next year, 2020. Share this video so more people are aware of this offer, or if you know people who have been trying to get their hands on Clip Studio Paint, here's your chance. And you can think of this as a happy holidays from Clip Studio Paint to you. For the 1.5 people that have stayed to the end of this video, I thank you. So don't forget the United States to smash that like button, subscribe button, and hit that bell so you stay notified each time I upload absolutely anything. Links to everything you could possibly need, including all my other social media, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff, along with Saturday AM's Instagram, Twitter, and all that good stuff as well, will be in the description below. I'll be answering all the questions that you guys have regarding the software in the comments, so don't forget to take full advantage of that as well. For those of you aspiring creators out there who want to make manga, comics, whatever you want to make, Clip Studio is probably a good bet for you. It's been swell, guys. Thanks for watching. Leave comments if you have any questions. It's WHYTMANGA, and I'm out.